Hello, welcome to honest-wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. This is the Age of Sigmar Stat Center that's recorded every Monday from 11 a.m. until about 1 p.m. We've got a pretty busy week this week, actually. This is actually the second most popular week since Age of Sigmar 3 launched. 445 players playing around the world across 7 countries, which is pretty exciting. I'm joined by the Twitch chat right here, if you'd like to join me live any day. And I think this will be a pretty quick one. I know it's a big one, but I reckon I'll get it through it fairly quick, which will be exciting. And I expect the meta to be quite different. To be honest, I think there'll be a bunch of different stuff in here, and I doubt I'll see many Kronsmine Incarnates after I made the show yesterday saying that we should ban it. So I don't expect that that'll be something that comes up particularly. So that'll be fun. So shout out. Now, we do have a list of the week, which will be at the very end of the show. So do check out the list of the week. I'll try and put some timestamps in so you can check it out. And then, I hope you enjoy the show, and I hope the lists are fun. So let's deep dive in. Here we go. So our first event this week is the Trouble at the Mill. The Trouble at the Mill. And this was at Leidis Games in Leeds in the UK, which is pretty exciting. And it's mainly exciting because you will have heard that Ogres went 5-0. So Pete Dixon, Pedro Fantastico, who's currently in the chat, and he was talking to us, he said that his list, which features the Incarnate, I apologise, I'm not very well, had a Frostsoul and Stonehorn in Blood Gullet, a Slaughtermaster, 2 units of 2 Mournfang, 2 Stonehorn Beast Riders, which are also battle line, and then 2 Frost Sabers, and then a Kronsmine Incarnate of Gur. Now, we know for a fact that Ogres are doing only okay. They're not doing great. There's a new book on the horizon very, very soon, but it has been Battle Tome, Frostsoul and Stonehorn for about as long as it's been available to be so. Only in very fringe cases, such as Stu Iron Gutsman, who you can go check out his YouTube channel. Oh, and also congratulations on getting engaged, and also getting into university. He's got a great YouTube channel where he loves ogres, so it's something to talk about there, and mainly destruction. Even before it was a Battle Tome. That's a good point, Hazel. Even before it was a Battle Tome, it was actually Battle Tome this. But the added addition of the Incarnate, which can't die for a couple of turns, and specifically can tank, is really, really good, because this means that, as Pete was saying in the chat, the Frostsoul and Stonehorn is going to be able to just delete something, move off, and just have a great time. Still an excellent result. 24 players. Really, really happy for Pete. Like, he's a real nice guy, and I can't think of anyone doing it better. I actually won top ogre at one of my events very recently, actually. So I'm not surprised to see him then going 5-0, which might be his first one at the weekend. And like Greg is saying in the chat, Greg, a member of Team Wales and one of my favourite people, Incarnate with +3 piling is pretty tasty from a drop of the red stuff. So there's a little bit of a trick there. Maybe for my first win present, the chat can buy me an Incarnate. That would be true. Oh, thank you to Grey Frox in the chat for donating £10 to the show. It's not a lot, but I'll get you in a night in a rubbish Airbnb when Games Workshop come for you. Thank you so much, Grey Fox. Appreciate it. All right, great. So that's our first 5-0 of the day. Loads more to look at, and then we'll jump into the 4-1s. Right, okay, let's look at the 4-1 bracket. Skaven doing pretty well on this, and Daughters of Cain. So you got Baz. Now, Baz has put in loads of work over the past year or year and a half, since obviously restrictions stuff lifted up. He's playing a lot of Daughters of Cain and has been doing incredibly well with his Daughters of Cain all over. It was one of kind of my key takeaways, especially from the event that I was at the weekend, that we just have a lot of up-and-coming young players around the country, and it's going to be a ferocious tournament series over the next year or so in the Age of Sigmar. And that doesn't mean they're very competitive or hyper-competitive. They're all very fair on the tabletop. It's excellent play. Some of these people who I'm seeing, like Greg and Phil and Baz, are all just like Pete, like they're all just picking up, and they're like, you know what, I'm going to play, and they're playing at a great level and winning events, and it's really great to see the entire community's like skill level lifted up, and it's still being a great group of people. So he was running Marathian the Bow Snakes with some Shadow Stonkers and some Heartrenders. Don't really need to explain it too much, but Baz has been putting those reps in and deserves all the praise he gets. So Baz in the chat, 36 events in 2022, 6 2-dayers in 9 weeks. There we go. there's the reps. And I think that's good. That's like healthy. Like this is his hobby, the thing that he enjoys. He likes going to events. Baz has been to my events. I've been to events where Baz is. It's a great source of energy and love in the room. That's what you want, yeah. So next up, Thomas Wainwright, also from the Warrior Lodge, running Skaven Tide. It's pretty fun. We've started to see Skaven Tide start to really take shape as a book over the past month or so. There's been a bunch of different people trying some different stuff. When I was at Alliance Opens, we saw a bunch of the different French players all running kind of like a double six Stormfiend list to see if that had any legs. We're seeing Thanquol a lot, which is really nice because he's the faction leader, but I haven't seen anyone really describe Thanquol as being oppressive, which I think is also really good as well. So it feels like it's kind of in a sweet spot because I also haven't seen many of these go. Like, there hasn't been consistent 5-0s, but we've seen lots of 4-1s and then also some dropped-off results as well. The Vermont Deceiver is definitely one of those things that we've seen a lot of, though, and that's because it's got its own innate ability to deep strike via a spell called Skitterleap, and it can do it within 6 inches, so it's got a real opportunity to like do some serious harm in combat. Then it's got the Devious Adversary and the Shadow Magnet Trinket. One of them makes you always strikes first, and then the other one adds like +2 attacks to each of your melee profiles, so it can become, and he's got the spell flaming weapon, so you can make one of those weapons have +1 damage, so you're really getting a kind of like combo of this kind of like very effective, very transportable, mobile duelist piece that's going to do some really solid work in there. Thanquol, obviously, with its ability to cast really high, is really good. Bombardier with more warp power and some long-range threats. 2 lots of 20 clan rats, kind of perfect in some ways. Like, Skaven have really got this great opportunity from their book that so many other armies would love a block of 20 infantry, especially on 25mm bases, that they can use as screens. So screening is fairly hard, I'm going to say, in Age of Sigmar because of coherency rules. Sorry, I'm not very well. Because of coherency rules and other things. So a lot of people, I think, would be like very excited to be able to have like 2 blocks of 20 clan rats, right? Like most books, if you say, hey, do you want 100 points for 20 random bodies? I think most people would be like, yes, I'll take that. 6 Stormfiends, great at range, doing some real solid output. And even if you get in a fight, those shot gauntlets, 2 of them are armed with shot gauntlets, do some really solid work. I talked about this a little bit already, but Jezzails or Warp Lightning Cannons really give that long-range threat. I always describe this as keeping an army honest. I always like there being something long range. Basically, what you always want is you want the ability to reach out and touch your opponent first turn with your army to their army. You want to touch their army with your army, not them with you. That's what I mean. But those Jezzails and also the Stormfiends or some of the endless spells give you the opportunity to do so. Otherwise, you end up in this kind of like weird mid-board state where you're not necessarily threatening them on the first turn. One of those units that kind of does that is OBR, as an example. Like, they generally are a mid-board threat army or Zinch, but they do have options. So yeah, Jezzails, great. They're just budget rat versions of Vanguard Raptors with long strikes. And then you got Laquin, the Soul Seeker, for the Scoot and Toot, the Thanquol. I do wonder how much this is going to change. That has to change. The move after you cast a spell with the boat has to be something that changes in the upcoming Battle Scroll update. We'll see. Either way, currently for 30 points, it's amazing. And then Ravenex Nation Jaws for a bunch of different power. So let's just double that up with the other Skaven list. The Thanquol featuring again. This time, we don't have the Skitter Leaping, Vermont Deceiver, Engineer, and a Bombardier. Then Clan Rats, again, are 6 Stormfiends, 2 lots of Warp Lightning Cannons, Rattling Gun, Warp Grinder, Giant Rats. The Warp Grinder does mean that he can pop up the unit of Stormfiends, but that happens at the end of the movement phase, which means you wouldn't be applying more warp power, which is kind of the combo that you do in this army. So it's kind of an interesting take. And then you got Laquan the Soul Seeker again. So a Surfer Beach dude. Okay, yeah. Without the move after, it's kind of useless. It's not useless. It's just its utility is probably worth 30 points, which is to move a wizard pretty far. That's pretty good for 30 points to move a monster combat wizard, and then he can move after. So as in you aren't deep striking outside of 9, it's pretty massive. If we look at some of the armies, in order to get the ability to get within 9 inches via a teleport, if we look at Sylvaneth, you have to play for the White Swarm Hive, a wizard to cast it, then also maybe a Battle Mage of Gur from Cities of Sigmar. So you're paying well over like well over 100 points, maybe pushing, including the wizard you get into cast, although you're taking it anyway, you're looking more towards 200, 300 points. And that's just for a 6-inch rerollable, which some people can fail, some people can fail, can't they, Simon? So, there we go. They'll drop the requirement to stay outside of 9 and drop the move, keep the points the same. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, so yeah, excellent work there from Thomas Wainwright. And then another Daughters of Cain list, an Iron Scale, Marathi, 2 lots of 10 Witch Elves, and then 15 Blood Sisters. So these are the fighty snakes, and this is with a Kronspine Incarnate of Gur. This is kind of one of those wombo combos which we've talked about a lot over the past few weeks. It's not particularly new, but the Incarnate plus Marathi is obviously devastating in that neither of those two power pieces are 1,000 points of an army that just can't die. So you can yeet it, and in fact may well not beat it because of the eating, basically. So that's everything. That's everyone in the 4-1 at Leidis Games. Leidis Games is in Leeds. The people that run that, super nice, super lovely. Go check them out. Same as Elysian War Games, which might not be too far from there. Or my geography's terrible. But yeah, go check them out. I'm sure it's a lovely time. So for the next event, we're going to go over to Norway. The 2D6 Gaming Club have had an event called Oslo Hammer. I think we had 24 attendees at this event. And it was won by Geir Videld of the Norwegian AOS team. Geir has played at the TSN Top 16 event here in the UK. A phenomenal gamer and just a super, super lovely guy. He's running Seraphon Fangs of Sotek with Lord Croak, an Ashroth Bannerbearer, Skink Priest, Star Priest, and then 30 Skinks and 3 lots of 10 Skinks, 4 Source Guard, and 2 lots of 2 Salamanders, with Chronomantic Cogs for reroll cast and the Horror Gas for no Inspiring Presence and D3 additional runaway. Okay, so there's not much to say about this. I haven't said about this list 1,000 times, but I'll say it again. Croak with all the casts, Rain of Stars, and then Skinks have got an ability because they're in Fangs of Sotek for get +3 move turn 1, and so that makes them movement 11, and they shoot 18 to 16 inches, so it's like 27-inch threat range on all their shots, and they can do mortal wounds on 6s to wound from the 60 shots that are coming from the Skinks with the bolt spitters. So yeah, really, 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 really solid. Hand of Glory for reroll 1 stay hit on different units. Pop, 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 or do it on a load of different units. Salamanders it's particularly good on, as an example, because they hit on 3s. You can make them hit on 2s. Those 2 Salamanders still amazing output. If you ever bother to put the Salamanders into like a damage profile calculator, insane stuff. Yeah, just really solid, and unfortunately, like one of the best, or one of, if not the better list available in Age of Sigmar at the moment, and then handed to one of the best players around the world. You're going to just have a terrible time facing that every time. I'm not going to lie. The man's a savage on the tabletop, and continue to do so. Right, so Eric Sora, apologies if I got that wrong. Eric was running Daughters of Cain, Calibron, and he was running a Melisite Iron Scale, Marathi, and the Bow Snakes, 2 lots of Shadow Stalkers, and then an allied in unit of 20 Phoenix Guard. So Phoenix Guard have got 1 wound each, but they're on a 4-up save and a 4-up ward save, so they're very tanky. And the real cute trick here is the command trait Zealous Orator, which is a Daughters of Cain command trait, allows friendly units when they issue a rally, so it's friendly, not Daughters of Cain units, to issue the rally on a 4-up. So that means that like you get a 4-up rally on the Phoenix Guard, basically, which is just pretty crazy, because they're already so survivable, and they're a great tar pit anvil unit that you can use to defend your Bloodstalkers who are going to shoot 24 inches. Sorry, chat, not very well. And then we had in so that was Eric Sora. No, that wasn't Eric. Sorry, Eric was running. That was Lassie Kalberg. Eric was running Nighthaunt, so that was Lassie. Eric was running Nighthaunt, and his Nighthaunt list was a Guardian of Souls, a Krulgas Cruciator in Scarlet Doom and Spirit Torment, then 30, 20 Bladegeist Revenants. Don't forget they do mortal wounds when they charge. 5 Hex Wraiths, 3 Spirit Hosts, 10 Dreadscythe Harridans. The Harridans and the 30 Bladegeist were all in Bounty Hunters. 2 lots of 3 Fellbats, which we're thinking, me in the chat are generally thinking, we used to stop Unleash Hells. Nighthaunt particularly susceptible to things like Reaver or Blizzbarb Archer shooting, where it's a weight of dice. Also really weak, I think, at the moment, potentially, to Bone Splitters. I think the high win rate on Bone Splitters at the minute is actually because they play super well into Nighthaunt. And then the Purple Sun. And then the Purple Sun in that list as well, which I think is very cool. So yeah, just 4-up armor saves that are unrenderable. You can give units 5-up ward either through Discorporate or through the casting spell. -1 damage from the Krulgas Cruciator. They're the reason that Age of Sigmar is currently a melee game, I think a lot of people think, even though there's still some very good shooting armies out there. We've talked about the Daughters of Cain army, and then Jan Hovik. I'm sure I nailed that. I think I nailed that. With Stormcast Eternals. So Jan was running a Knight Judicate with Gryph-hounds, a Lord Relictor with the Master of Magic and the Arcane Tome, and then a Slann who he allied in with the universal spell Flaming Weapons. I'm not sure you can take Flaming Weapons on an allied in character, but that's fine. Then 4 Dracothian Guard Fulminators, 4 Dracothian Guard Tempesters, 2 units of 5 Liberators, and then a Storm Chariot and the Everblaze Comet. So the Everblaze Comet is going to be cast by the Slann, because the Slann gets +1 to cast and can unbind board wide. So the Slann can unbind it and cast it, and it's set up at 33 inches and affects every unit within 10 inches. I ran this weekend with the rest of the Rain of Stars crew. It's not the first time people have been putting the allied Slann in with the Comet. It's been something that's been happening for a while. Shout out to Dom. Loads of people around the world have been doing this. It's a really fun little trick. Slann's great for unbinding. Bringing the Slann into the Stormcast army gives you some really great opportunity to shut down enemy magic, which you really don't have as an army, right? 265 for a Slann or 275 for a Gaunt Summoner. Yeah, more on that later. Knight Judicator's got some great range for shooting. Lord Relictor's got Translocate, so can teleport a unit. And ultimately, Fulminators are one of, if not the punchiest unit in Age of Sigmar. Their damage output is just truly gross and insane. Tempesters have got a shooting attack, very much like the Boltstorm crossbows that we saw being used a lot very recently, especially by Dennis the Menace. So 15 shots. Oh, this is going to be 12 shots. Hits on 3s, but any hits generate 2 wound dice. So obviously you can give them all out attack, so you're going to have 12 shots, and if you roll any 2s, each of those are going to double up into your wound dice. So you're going to get like 20 wound dice. That wound on 3s, rend 1, damage 1. So that's quite nice. Stormstrike Chariot does great damage. Like, really good. Stormstrike Chariot is really great at 165 points. Like, value town all day long. Yeah. So that's the event in Norway. If you get the opportunity to go and hang out with any of them, I've had the pleasure to do so. Wonderful people. And there we go. Okay, so our next event isn't a 2-dayer, it's a 1-dayer, but it gives us a great opportunity to shout out one of the smaller communities that's around the world. If you do happen to be from one of the smaller communities that can't necessarily generate enough people for a 2-dayer, please do let us know that you're having like a little 1-dayer, like Guy has done in the chat. There's an event in Israel, and this was being held in Timorim, and they had 9 players. One unfortunately dropped out. But they managed to get like 10 players together playing Age of Sigmar, and Dotin Shani won the event, and he was running Sylvaneth, a Lariel, a Warsong Revenant, Arch Revenant, some Tree Revs, a Dryad, some Purple Suns, a Purple Sun, and then 3 Kurnoth Hunters with Great Bows, and then some allied in Black Ark Corsairs. Amazing. Amazing. Okay, well, I hope to see the community grow and expand there, like I hope to see the community grow and expand everywhere in the world. So do shout us out if you do have one of those smaller communities and where your events are taking place, because I'd love to know about them. The next event we're looking at is in Australia. International is Age of Sigmar, which is fantastic. And this event in Australia is called Moab. Moab. There are many kind of like comments in the chat about what this may well stand for. We do think it's Mother of All Battles, but someone thought it might be Mother of All Boobs, which doesn't really make any sense, because is it the mother of boobs, or is it the biggest boob ever? So I think it's Battles, the Mother of All Battles. Okay, so we had 48 players playing at the Mother of All Battles in 2022. And it was won by Joel Graham, shout out to Joel, and Terence Voller came in second place, but both of these 2 players went 5-0. Joel and Terence, but Joel specifically, has been performing incredibly well through most of Age of Sigmar. Like, it's undeniable. And he's done it with I think this might be our first Eineth Deepkin 5.0, or it might be one of the very few Eineth Deepkin 5.0s that we've had in this battle pack. I think we've had one before, but just excellent work by Joel there. So just to tell you what's in his list, he's got the Slap King, or the Achillian King, who's got Unstoppable Fury command trait, and then the Mound trait Void Chill Darkness. Unstoppable Fury is basically +2 attacks to every melee profile for like every enemy unit within, I think it's 3 inches or something. So you just kind of unleash it. Like by yeeting him into like a variety of different, and he moves 16, he can run and charge, like there's a bunch of different stuff, like depending on the tide. Then Void Chill Darkness is like a -1 to hit or -1 to wound. I think it's -1 to hit, bubble around him, but it might be -1 to wound, bubble around him from the mount. So just really outputty, not that survivable, and like really susceptible to just getting yeeted off the board with some shooting or some mortal wounds. But he's so far away. Like even a cheeky charge into a Maw Crusher can end up with a Maw Crusher just stomping him to death, which can be something that occurs. So you got to be fairly, like, 250 points. He's definitely brilliant, the Achillian King, but he brings some real utility. He's kind of like he's just like a bunker buster. He like goes in and is like, I'm definitely gonna smash this thing to pieces. And then you got the Eidolon, Mathalan the Sea. With the Arcane Tome, so this is the Wizard Eidolon, and then he's got the Arcane Tome, making him a 3-cast Wizard, and then he's got Steed of Tides, but it's bound to the Incarnate, making him very reliable to cast a spell, specifically the -armor save spell, which is going to tie in really nicely with his 2 units of 10 Reavers, which means he's got 40 shots. 40 shots, which could be up to like, well, no, he's not actually not. Sorry, that only works on combat. So it'll be the Morsar Guard that benefit from that. Apologies. It only works in combat. So be able to reduce your save, and then all of the attacks on the Morsar Guard should be able to lift something that's pretty tough. Yeah, 20 shots from each Reaver unit, 40 shots in the list at Rend 1. An Elapex with a net launcher to like make stuff can't pile in, and then the Incarnate. And the Incarnate is all to say. And then Terrence, Vola, 3 Gatebreaker Mega Gargants, and an Incarnate. 3 giant lads with maces ready to crush all before them and stand on objectives aggressively while an Crunchman Incarnate runs around and fights stuff. So, congratulations to both of those 2 player ones. Okay, if we look at the 4-1 bracket for Moab, mother of all big battles full of not boobs, we had Tom Oliver with the Magic King and Nurgle. He was running Pushkar Blight Lords. He was running Fighty Orgox Demon Spew, which is the Magoth Lord, and he was also running Be'lakor for shutting down your opponent. Still, maybe one of the best allies to ally in ever. I don't know, like, he's just so good. Be'lakor at 400 points is just amazing, especially in a Nurgle list which wants to deny how much output that you put into your army. It's a very slow ramp list. It's an attrition army. So yeah, great work from Tom. Austin had a really sweet big war list. He has an Uruk War Chanter with a Master of Magic and Arcane Tome, a Breaker Boss on Marbruk Troggoth with the mount trait Faster, means he double moves, 16-inch threat range on genuinely one of the best duelist units that you can get for 180 points. Just really solid, really, really good stuff. And then he's got a Mega Boss on foot with Destroyer, another great duelist unit, especially at 140 points. A War Chanter, a Swampcaller Shaman with a Pot Grot, and then a Wurgog Prophet with a glowing tattoos. Okay? And then he's got 5 Ard Boys, 5 Ard Boys, 5 Brutes. Then he's got Iron Skulls Boys, then 6 Manskewer Bolt Boys, 3 Gorgrunters, 3 Gorgrunters, and Savage Boar Boy Maniacs, and then Ravanax Gnashing Jaws. This is like a collection of different rules overlapping into each other just to be really good. You can missile off one of the unit of Gorgrunters so they can charge forward with +1 to hit and do a bunch of additional damage. He's also got Expert Conquerors and Bounty Hunters. I'm seeing this a lot actually at the minute in list writing. I still think Battle Reg and 1-drops always kind of outpick this, but I can definitely see the headache that being several drops causes for your opponent. It's like, look, I've got 3 units of 10, which you don't care about, or 3 units of 5 or whatever that don't care about, but they're going to count as 3 per model on an objective because I'm running Expert Conquerors. And you're not really worried about those because you've got the other units, which are your Bounty Hunter units. So in this case, our Bounty Hunters are are Savage Boar Boy Maniacs with just a load of attacks, 3 Gore Grunters, and another 3 Gore Grunters. So those are our units, whereas our units of 5 Uruk Ard Boys, and then a unit of Brutes are all counting as 3 on an objective. I'm seeing this quite a lot at the minute, and actually it really creates some like really fun on-table mechanics where you're having to be a lot more conscious of the unmatched. Like, you see a unit in front of you, like, oh, it's only 5. You're so used to just knowing that the unit you have on the objective is going to outscore the 5 in front of you. But when it moves, you're like, oh, actually, that's going to be 15. You've got some really nice stuff happening, which I really enjoy. Yeah, really, really good. Yeah, big fan. So yeah, great work on. And then you got the. Also got some interesting things to say about Cruel Boys. I played a guy called Carson at the weekend with Cruel Boys, and they just are very outputty. They've got some, like, they just need some survivability. That's all they need, but their output is prodigious. Like, really, really good. Okay, so next up, Jake Gunning. Shout out to Jake, running Flesh Eater Courts. So again, Flesh Eater Courts, generally one of those armies that isn't doing overly well, but we're seeing quite a few different kind of like builds like this. So we've got an Abhorrent Art Regent, another Abhorrent Ghoul King, and then you've got Abhorrent Ghoul King on Royal Terrorgeist, 2 lots of 10 Crypt Ghouls, 2 lots of 6 Crypt Horrors, and the Kronspine Incarnate of Gur, Purple Sun, and Cogs. Now, that Purple Sun is kind of very important in this army, because generally Rend is something that's not very common for this army, but it gives even the Crypt Ghouls, who've got 3 attacks each, and if you put the Abhorrent Art Regent spell on them for an additional plus D3 attacks, those Crypt Ghouls, who, because they're in not bounty hunters, because they're Galician veterans, they can fight from maybe 3 ranks because they're on 25 mil basis. So you can do a phenomenal amount of output, but you still have no Rend. So it's quite nice to have a little bit of Rend from Purple Sun, in my personal opinion. One of the things that's always kept Flesh Eater Courts down is the ability to not cast spells particularly well. Which is why sometimes you used to see a corpse card put in. This is before the new Silverlight Gravelords book, because it gave you +1 to cast. So these cogs are very important because it makes the Arc Regent even better. It makes the Abhorrent Ghoul King better, and it makes the Abhorrent Ghoul King and Royal Terrorgeist better, because that means you're more likely to get that 5-up ward and also that run and charge on the Abhorrent Ghoul King and Royal Terrorgeist, which does amazing output thanks to the Mount Trait Gruesome Bite. And the ability to just stack a bunch of buffs on. So, like, it's just really, like, the Chronomantic Cogs, I think, is one of those things that's really affected this army in a load of ways. Those Cryptaurus, 2 units of 6 for 220 points. Pretty good value. Not gonna lie, it's pretty good. So I think this is a real interesting list. I really, really do. And again, being piloted to 4-1 by Jake, should be super chuffed with that. Sean with his Magic and Nurgle. I know I'm saying Nurgle again, but it's slightly different. Slimmux and a Rotbringing Sorcerer with Arcane Tome, but not the Master of Magic. And Gutrot Spume. Then 3 Beasts of Nurgle and 2 1 Beasts of Nurgle. 3 Plague Drones, 6 Plague Drones, and then 20 Rotmire Creed with the Horrorghast. Games Workshop have recently FAQ'd the Rotmire Creed's ability to do additional disease points, so I won't bother going through that. But if you were planning on listening to, if you were planning on using Rotmire Creed because you'd heard some other creators or you'd read something online that said you could use it to stack a bunch of disease points, that's changed now in a kind of shadow FAQ that happened. There's nothing stealthy about it, just sometimes they don't really announce that they've changed something, so it has had a change. Please do go check that out. It'll be on the Games Workshop website somewhere, who knows where. I'll try and find, in fact, I'll definitely find the link and I'll include it in the show notes so you people know. And he's got the Horrorghast. The Horrorghast combos super nicely with the Beast of Nurgle and also the Rotbringer Sorcerer, because the Rotbringer Sorcerer means that you, on their War Scroll, you can apply disease points via cast this, a spell they cast. And then finally, the did you know that I can grill you the best barbecue bun you've ever had? In 7th place, Blake McLachlan. Was running a Khorne list with a Bloodthirster from Infected Rage, a Bloodthirster from Incensed Rage, Scarbrand, a Slaughter Priest, and a Bloodsecrator. 2 lots of 10 Blood Reavers, Fleshhounds, and the Kronspine Incarnate of Gur with the Wrathmongers. So very much like we've said with most of these lists, thanks Russ by the way, like we said with most of these lists, one of the things that's really telling about these Khorne lists that have been doing really, really well is they basically just making it Scarbrand fights. Everything else is kind of like flavor text. They're just like, yeah, sure, here's this guy, here's this other guy, here's this unit, here's an incarnate even. But what they're really looking to do is just push a buffed up Scarbrand, so he's near a Blood Secretor for +1. +1 attack. He's near the Wrathmongers for +1 attack, so he's got +3 attacks. Then he just destroys the earth. That's what it's really all about. That's how it plays, and it's actually really interesting. They've got loads of blood tie to kind of orientate a bunch of different stuff now to create that interaction. Yeah. And I really like that. And like Owen's saying, the Incarnate gives Scarbrand time to fight and get in. Like, it's what it does. It slows the tempo maybe of like some of the Alpha armies. So yeah, really great, and we've seen that theme played a lot basically. So shout out to everyone at Moab. Hope you had a great time. Shout out to everyone in Australia. Love you tons. And yeah, on to the next. For our next event, we're going over to Huntsville in Alabama in the United States of America. We had 14 players battling it out, and our winner was Mike Maccabi, who is currently in the chat, and he was doing a bit of a hipster thing, which we're seeing done a lot recently, mainly by Lex over in the Netherlands, where the Dutch live. And this is running a bunch of Nighthaunt. So Nighthaunt, he went 5-0 with Nighthaunt, and he was using the Quicksilver Dead. So this is a sub-faction where you get Harridans as battle line, but also you can't take ward saves against it, which is like a really nice play into into Nighthaunt mirrors, but also into Nurgle, which we see a lot of them in it, right? Cruel Gas Cruciator, obviously for that -1 a damage reduction in an aura. Kurdos, Lady Alinda, Spirit Torment, Cruel Gas Cruciator, then a Spirit Torment. Then 20 Dread Scythe Harridans, 20 Dread Scythe Harridans, and then 20 Chain Rasps. So they're going to be Galician veterans, which means they obviously get to fight within an inch of an inch. And then you've got 4 attacks per one. So that unit of 20 Harridans has got 80 attacks. 8-0, right? Let's go. Yeah, and then there's like with the Harridans as well. You've got the ability to add +1/+1 to the Harridans. Let me just go bring up the Harridan War Scroll so you can all see for a moment. So yeah, so they're 4 attacks each, 4s and 4s, no rend damage 1. But you subtract 1 from the wound rolls against them when they make a charge, which is massive. And then you add 1 to hit and wound rolls for attacks made by melee weapons by this unit if it's within 6 inches of an enemy model that have any wounds allocated to it, or them if it's within 6 inches of any units that have any models slain in that turn, right? So, what you're able to do is you're able to go to 3s and 3s on 80 attacks, and don't forget when Nighthaunt charge, they can reduce the save of your opponent down because depending on what the charge roll is, so basically you get to apply a debuff. So you could have it so you definitely get no warbird saves. Well, that's guaranteed. Yeah. Then you can have it so these guys are going to be doing a phenomenal amount of weight of dice, and then you can have it so that you don't have much of an armor save. So these things will just rip through a bunch of stuff. But Phil Sprigger's saying the answer to that, of course, is Lumineth Cow Mountains. LGT 20 Harridans had 80 attacks in Avlanor, and he took 1 damage, which is great. But yeah, the one thing that's being talked about by Punka, who was playing this, so he's in the chat, was saying that he doesn't really tend to build a lot of a castle build in his. He doesn't run a lot of MSU to reduce those saves. Instead, he builds more of a castle build, which is really good if you can rain the stars into it. Unless no one actually plays it at the event you're attending, which is the worst. He's also got Kurdos Valentin, Lady Alinda, Spirit Torment, Cruel Gas Cruciator, and Spirit Torment. So he's going to be able to put models back into these units, so 3 at the end of each combat phase, which is really good. Alinda's going to be able to, once per battle, bring D6 back into each unit as well, as they slowly get whittled down. He's also got the Emerald Life Swarm, so for returning them. So he is fairly body light in this army, and he's recognised that, so he's got the ability to bring those units back with Life Swarm, Spirit Torments, and also Lady Alinda. Then he's also got some great combat output in Valentine, Kurdos Valentine, the Craven King. So yeah, just a really, really cool list. If it wasn't that I know that there's a really great Sylvaneth list coming up, this might be pick of the week, especially because it's just a little bit different. Those Dread Scythe Harridans, so really like that. Also really fun into some of the other like problem armies that are out there. Bone Split is a good example. When they're dropping 190 wounds on the board, these Dread Scythe Harridans are going to be able to chew them up. But then interestingly, there's probably enough dice coming back from those silly green Uruks that maybe these guys go down, which is quite fun as well. So I really like that. Okay, so in his first ever 4-1, maybe, Austin was able to go 4-1 Flesh Eater Courts. This is great for Flesh Eater Courts. Another little result on the board. Really happy for them as an army. He's got an Abhorrent Ghoul King Royal Terrorgeist, and he has 2 of those. He's then got 2 Abhorrent Archregents, a Royal Terrorgeist, 20 Crypt Ghouls, and 10 Crypt Ghouls with a Chalice of Usharan. So that's going to be whenever he does damage near the Chalice, it fills up and it heals these guys around. So maybe in a combat meta, these are particularly good. But ultimately, yeah, just super happy for Fletch, and I'm really happy he's been getting the reps in to do really well with his list. Okay, all right, so our next event is the Duck Stravaganza. And I don't really take the time to talk about this, but sometimes event art's a bit like, you know what I'm saying. But let's talk about this fine duck. The Knights of the Pond Duck Stravaganza GT. Absolutely. We need a couple of more animal mascots in Age of Sigmar for some of the teams. A lot of the teams have got, like, you know, they've got some cool logos or whatever, but don't mind a good animal mascot. So there we go. It's the Duck Stravaganza. Definitely the only and best duck in Age of Sigmar. Okay, so there were 31 players at this event, and our winner was Mike Vaginos. Absolutely massive fan of this guy. He's an absolute treasure. He was playing in Bone Splitters, and he was running them in Drakfoot. So Bone Splitters have got, like, the important part is there's no ward saves with this army. He's got a Savage Big Boss, a Wergog Prophet with the glowing tattoos, which means he gets a 4-up ward, and in the War it goes up to a 2-up ward, in or maybe only in melee, but either way makes him very survivable. Another Wergog Prophet, and those 2 Wergog Prophets' jobs are to do the Care Bear Stare. So they do D3 mortal wounds on a 3-up. If you don't roll a 3-up, you take D3 mortal wounds, but obviously then you end up with a ward save, so then you ward save your own mortal wounds, and then if you want to, you can elect to keep rolling the dice, and you keep doing mortal wounds, or you keep taking mortal wounds. You either murder them with your eyes, or you die to your eyes. Yeah, it's kind of the... Oh, I wish I remembered his name, because that would have been a great joke to fire off the hip. But that actor in Con Air with the crazy eyes. You know who I'm talking about. Whatever that guy's name is. A duck as a mascot, that's Quackers. Thank you. Then he had 3 units of 10 Savage Orc More Boys. They're 20 wounds apiece for 155 points. Pretty great. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 units of Big Stammers. And it was Steve Buscemi. Thank you. It would have been great if I'd have thought it up, but basically the Wergog Prophets are Steve Buscemi, effectively. And let's just take a moment. Let's take a moment to just look at the profile of the big stabbers, as they say. So they got 4 wounds apiece, and they got a 6-up armor save. So they're not that survivable, and they move 5 inches. But because of Bone Splitters, you get the pre-game move, so you move half the army. And then 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, Ren 2. Damage 2, and there's 2 inside the unit, so you end up with 6 attacks, 3s and 3s, Ren 2, damage 2. However, each time a model in this unit is slain by an attack made by a melee weapon, before the model is removed from play, you pick 1 enemy unit and within 3 inches. If it's slain, you roll a dice and add 2 if it's a monster. On a 4+, the enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So you can go in, murder a bunch of stuff, and then you do D3 mortal wounds, basically. Let's just say it's on a 4-up, which means when you've got 14 of these units, and it's each time a model is slain. So you've basically got 28 dice, or 14, like you should statistically do 14 D3 mortal wounds, which would equal 28 mortal wounds, which is pretty great. Yeah. So there we go. It's Meta Watch Monday. Okay, we'll also call it that. The Age of Sigmar Stat Center and also Meta Watch Monday at the same time. Anyway, so those are big stabbers. And then just great work. This list, this might be the same army that's been in literally every... So it's been in Tom Long's hands. It's been in every person's hands all over the USA for the past few months. and loads of people have been using it. I think it was in Noah's hands for a bit. Like all sorts of people have been playing with it. So yeah, great work there from Michael, proving it's got some real solid work. Okay, so if we take a look at the 4-1 bracket, we've got some pretty well-known names, and we've also got some really well-known armies. So Emma was running her Skaven Tide, representing Wicked Dicey. So Emma was running 9 Storm Fiends in her list, and then was also running a Bombardier, a Warlock, and then Thanquol. Thanquol also had access to the Geminids, Soulscreen Bridge, and Laquan the Soul Seeker, so definitely could use the bridge to move the Storm Fiends over to bring all of that output to bear. Now, Emma only lost 1 game, and that was in round 4 against Jacob Brandon, who also went 4-1 and was also running Skaven. And in a kind of nice head-to-head story that's ongoing in these events, Jacob previously beat Emma at another event, Summer Slaughter, in round 1. And again, a Skaven one-on-one. So Emma has really got to, Emma's got loads of wins under her belt. Like, she doesn't need to necessarily prove herself as a gamer, but she needs to prove herself with Skaven against Jacob only. So long may that rivalry continue. I love that. Jeremy Hauk was running Sons of Behemoth. He was running Stomper Tribe with a Gatebreaker, and 2 War Stompers. And then we had our James O'Brien running Cities of Sigmar, and he was running Hallowheart. James, as I said, a fellow Brit, really lovely fella, and works super hard on making sure his community gets the most out of Age of Sigmar, runs lots of events, and is a real good dude. He's running Hallowheart, Celestant Prime, Battle Mage, Celestial Hurricanum, a Sorceress, and then a Blackheart Fleet Master with the Arcane Tome. But he did not have Master of Magic, and instead had Veteran of the Blazing Crusade. Now, he was also running Dread Spears, 3 Scourge Runner Chariots, and then 5 Evocators, and a Krondspine Incarnate of Gur, Laquan the Soul Seeker, and the Horrorghast. So he's got like a little fighting unit in the Evocators that can go inside his little boat. He's got the Incarnate for holding the enemy up, and then he's mainly got all of his output coming from spells from all of the casts at the back of the board. Let's not forget the Hurricanum for 290 points, as well as being a wizard, is also a shooting platform that's got some real decent mortal wound output at range. And then the Celestant Prime can also do additional mortal wound output at range. So it kind of works along like a Reign of Stars style list, in that it can do a lot of mortal wounds to a lot of different units. Also can target those mortal wounds at a very specific unit. Horrorghast, so that you can't Inspiring Presence, and then additional more run away. And then he's got a unit to hold that army up, which is the Krondspine Incarnate. So that's what slows the tempo of an aggressive forward unit. In that the Incarnate's going to get in the mix, and then he's got his units of screens in the Dread Spears and the Scourge Runner Chariots. So yeah. Great there. And then Jacob, how does he beat Emma? What does he do? Now, Jacob's running maybe like different lists. We talked about a lot of Storm Fiends recently, so there's no Storm Fiends. Instead, he's gone more of an Eshin route. He's got a Vermilor Corruptor with the Blade of Corruption and Flaming Weapons, and he's got the Plague Priest with Rabid, which is going to give him +1 attack, making that Vermilor Corruptor very, very fighty. Vermilor Deceiver with exact same loadout as we've talked about previously for the Skittily, and then he's got 2 lots of 20 Clan Rats, 15 Gutter Runners, which are going to fire 45 attacks at 16-inch range, that are going to do 6s are going to be a mortal wound, a Warp Lightning Cannon, 2 units of 3 Warp Light Giselles from shooting from downfield to do, again, mortal wounds at range, and then a unit of 5 Gutter Runners. So in total, he's doing a lot of mortal wounds, proccing on 6s to hit. The Giselles are doing mortal wounds, Warp Lightning Cannon's doing mortal wounds, and then he's pushing forward with the Deceiver and Corruptor. But Jacob just constantly keeps hitting this kind of 4-1 bracket at the moment with Skaven, but he keeps innovating. He definitely loves these gut runners. We've seen him with Slink in the past in this list as well, so he keeps being fairly iterative with this Skaven list, which is lovely to see. Sounds like it was a cool event full of real great people, so if you get the opportunity to go to the Duckstravaganza, then please do. Next stop on our whistle tour around the world is Sweden for Fantasia Fanatic, held in Umeå. Umeå, something like that, in Sweden anyway. So that would be in the north of Sweden. And it was won by a legend, Night Queen Ronja herself. Ronja, having pushed around Nighthorn to prodigious effect, was able and our current TSN World Champion, and the current TSN World Champion, I'll have you know. So a absolute legend was running Beast of Chaos and was running a Dragon Ogre Shaggoth in All Herd. Now, because Beast of Chaos is one of the older books, you have to take a command trait and artifact when you're building your army. This is super bad. It's called a tax. We don't have it anymore in Age of Sigmar, which is great. But it was some old writing methodology that they had in Age of Sigmar. We don't like that, so we're glad it's gone. Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, Great Brave Shaman, and a Zangor Shaman on Beast of Chaos. There's a fun little artifact called the Tunglethorn Familiars, which is, at the start of the enemy hero phase, if it's within 12 inches of a unit, Dragon Ogre Shaggoth with this, then you pick it and you say, you can't cast any spells this hero phase, which is amazing. So if you are able to move that Dragon Ogre Shaggoth anywhere near the enemy wizards, then you can shut down. It's also really good for enemy units that generally play pretty aggro into you. So, let's say a Ghoul King of Terrorgeist, for example. That's a bad example because you rarely see it. But Marathi is a good example. Normally gets yeeted at your army, but like no spell casting for you, which I think is really good. 6 Dragon Ogres, 125 points for 15 wounds, with a 4-up armor save. And then 4 lots of 10 Ungor, 20 Zangor in Beast of Chaos. All with Savage Great Blades. These are pre-FOMO box Zinch. 2 units of 6 Zangor enlightened on disc of Zinch. So at that point, they would have been rerolls to hit, rerolls to wound if they go second. And then the Ravening Direflock, which is a really nice spell that you can nip around the board and makes it you can't use Inspiring Presence, which is really, really clever. Love this. Fast and powerful. Just a very competent army run by someone very competent. It's kind of been the story of the week so far. So congratulations to Ronja. Let's take a look at the 4-1 bracket. Okay, so Anders Gustafsson didn't do it, but tried. Was running Scarlet Doom, Nighthorn. So in his list, he was running Guardian Souls with the Master of Magic and the Arcane Tome, a Krulgas Cruciator, 2 lots of 20 Bladegeist Revenants, 5 Hex Wraiths, 3 Spirit Hosts, Grimghast Reapers, and the Kronspine Incarnate of Gur. Mortal Wounds from the charge from the Bladegeist, 4-up Ethereal save. He's in the chat right now, live WFB, and he says that the Incarnate allows his army to tank all of the damage so that he gets to charge in with his big units, basically, where normally his big units would have to tank it and sometimes they die. So this is like a way of around that, which is quite cool. Marcus Presson, with his Sylvaneth Gnarlroot, was running a Lariel in the Warsong Revenant and a Spirit of Durthu with a Green Gladius. This thing, wow. Spirit of Durthu, unbelievable. 10 Dryads, 2x5 Tree Revenants, Spite Swarm Hive, and Expert Conquerors. Just really great stuff. Obviously, Alariel is going to just yeet and skeet using the Fight and Fade ability. The Warsong Revenant, whoa boy, great spellcaster, casting a bunch of spells. That additional +1 Rend from Tree Song is great in the army. It makes some of these units just so viable. The Tree Revenants for teleporting, Dryads, just great stuff. And the Deepkin list was being pushed forward by Martin Selberg, and very much like we saw the winner of Moab do, we had an Achillian King, a Tidecaster, and the Aspect of the Sea, but he's got 6 Morsar Guard as well, 20 Reavers, although we saw Moab have 2 10s and some Thralls, but he's traded out his Incarnate for the Ishling Guard, so a unit of 6 of those, which is super cool. Marcus Hagberg was running Seraphon Fangs of Sotek, 2 units of Salamanders, 30 Skinks, some Saurus Guard, your normal caster characters, including the Slan, Nashloth Bannerbearer, but he added a Kronspine Incarnate in, which is a nice little cheeky play. Then our unit, Alexis Herbeck was running Stormcast Eternals, and it was all in Hammers of Sigmar. He was running a Knight Draconis as his general with the Master of Magic and the artifact, the Arcane Tome. And then he was running a unit of 2 units of 2 Fulminators, a unit of Stormdrake Guard, some Liberators as well, 2 units of 3 Ether Wings, a single Stormdrake Guard, and then 2 units of 3 Vanguard Raptors with Long Strike Crossbows. And then we had Dennis Branval, with his Bone Splitters in Dragfoot again. Don't forget, no ward saves there. He was also running a Kronspine Incarnate of Gur, 2 Wargogs, Prophet, so those are the Care Bear, Steve Buscemi stairs, a Wardock, Savage Big Boss, 2 Savage Oryx, 2 units of Savage Oryx in 10s, and some more Boar Boy Maniacs as well. And then he was also taking Ravanax, Gnashing Jaws. And then our last 4-1 was Theodore Person with his Soulblight Gravelords list. He was running Radikar Belladama, so it's Radikar the Beast, Necromancer, and a Vengori Lord. Don't forget you -1 to your Rend with that Vengo Lord. It's pretty okay in a fight as well. 2 units of 10 Direwolves, 20 wounds for 130 points, 135 points. Some Death Rattle Skeletons, so 20 of those. 5 Blood Knights, and then 20 Graveguard that's super slap. And then the Umbral Spell Portal and the Purple Sun. So it's a really nice tech piece. Belladama doing mortal wounds, creating some dogs. All of these characters, especially the Necromancer, passing off wounds to those Direwolves, really means that you really can't affect the Necromancer's ability to potentially do the Van Hels's Dance Macabre spell, which is so important. Also got the Arcane Tome as well. Just a very cutthroat, powerful set of lists there. Like, just some really strong stuff. I think Sweden's one of those teams. Don't forget they came 3rd in Worlds. Sweden's one of those teams to really watch out for, and one of those nations to watch out for coming into Worlds next year. But also, just generally, their community is just like really proactive. There's some really strong characters in there. There's some really strong play. Really excited to see some of these lists coming out from there as well. So yeah, shout out to everyone in Sweden. Our next event is in Canada. We've been all around the world, and this is 16 people playing at the Gods and Monsters GT. In first place, we had Jake Seguin, who's running Cities of Sigmar. He had Anointed on Frostheart Phoenix, a Blackheart Fleetmaster, then 30 Freeguild Crossbowmen, some Dreadspears and Freeguild Guarders like 10s, then 4 Dracothian Guard Tempesters, and then a Kronspine Incarnate of Kur with Cecil Hurricanum and Ravanax, Gnashing Jaws. And then we have a Zinch list that was being run by Kevin Wardrop, but it's an old Zinch list, so because the new book's out now, so we'll talk about that another day. Yuri Shishvana, this is one of the Bulldagger Hammer boys. They've got a YouTube channel if you want to go check it out. Was running his Nighthaunt Scarlet Doom, which was Lady Alinda, Spirit Torment, and then 4 units of 20 Blake Ice Revenants with some Spirit Hosts. And then finally, we had Mark Polinsky with Ironeth Deepkin, and he was running all Achillian Alapexes. The Slap King, obviously, Lotan, and Eilon Aspect to the Sea. And then he had a unit of 2 Alapexes, and then 1, 2, 3 Alapexes, and then another 2 unit of Alapexes, for a total of 7 Alapexes. Don't forget, each Alapex has got 4 shots at 24 inches, doing D3 damage. So it's a lot of shooting, more of a shooting army. Thank you to Will in the chat for subscribing for the first time. And he also had a cheeky Doralia Vendenst. So, pretty cool list. Canadian events are always super fun. I hope to see more and bigger in the future. Our next event, we fly over to Australia, and we go into Tassie. We're going to check out them Tasmanians, and this is in Hobart. So this event in Hobart was called the HHOGT. I think it was the Hobart Hotel Original GT. Anyway, it had 27 players in Australia. It was won by Luke Stone, who ended up running Daughters of Cain. And we see Morathi's in the list with a High Gladiatrix. And we talked about the High Gladiatrix before. +1 on those Witch Elves. So those Witch Elves are turning into like a blender unit. Another unit of double Witch Elves here. And then a unit of 10 Doomfire Warlocks, which is truly crazy. I've not seen this before. And Luke, who's currently in the chat, says Bounty Hunters can get 4 attacks with damage 3 each. So as you can see, they are in the Bounty Hunters battalion, along with that unit of 20 Witch Elves, so 2 blender units. He's also included the Kronspine Incarnate of Gur and the Purple Sun. So we used to talk about Morathi and the Bow Snakes. Definitely true that Morathi and the Incarnate is kind of the double team now. It's kind of like Morathi broke up with the Bow Snakes band and then got back with some other kind of superstar, and now they form their own power duo. Kind of like a Meatloaf situation, I guess. I don't know if that's accurate, but Hobart Hammer. Okay, so it's Hobart Hammer. So there were no 5-0s, but there were 5 4-1s from this event. So congratulations to Luke. Sounds like a super cool Super cool little list. Those 10 Doomfire Warlocks, definitely up there for cool list right now. This is the Sunny and Share list. That's what we've got now. In second place, another 4-1, we've got Gwillem van den Bosch. Let's go for that. He's running Iron Shaw's Bloodtooth. Bloodtooth will make the Gore Grunters battle line. He's got Mega Boss and Maw Crusher with the Fasten Mount trait, Artifact Destroyer. He's got 2 Uruk War Chanters and 6 Gore Grunters. A unit of 10 Ard Boys, another unit of 10 Ard Boys, and then 5 Brutes, and the Rogue Idol, all in a battle regiment. Super punchy, super powerful, really strong. Just loads of output. It's just a great list, and will continue to be a great list. I absolutely love the Iron Jaws list at the minute. Just really strong, really good. In second place, Ethan, who's only been playing since August with his Sylvaneth army. It was in Naru, and he had a Warsong Revenant with Spell Singer, Tree Lord Ancient, and then the Arch Revenant. He had 10 Triads, 2 units of 5 Tree Revenants, 6 Gun Hunters with Great Swords, which is again very interesting pick. I've always been a Scythe guy myself. He allied in 3 Vanguard Raptors with Longstrike Crossbows, and then he has the Horrorghast, the Spite Swarm Hive, and the Vengeful Skullroot, all in a battle regiment. And in the chat he's telling me, so the combo is that the Skullroot and the Horrorghast make 2d3 extra flee when they fail a battle shock test, and he's able to apply that damage with those long strikes at range in conjunction with the mortal wounds that come in from the Warsong Revenant. Amazing little combo. Love that he's listened to I hope he's listened to the show, and he's been procking that Horrorghast run bubble. Horrorghast best spell, so good. Super happy for him, especially since playing since August. That's amazing stuff. Well done. The final list that we're going to look at from the Hobart GT was run by Kane. He was running Guard of Steel Soul, 5-up ward around in his Hallowed Knights army, Lord Relictor with the Master of Magic and the Arcane Tome. And then he had 3 units of 5 Liberators and 2 units of 4 Stormdrake Guard in a battle regiment, which is amazing. Just superpower all the time. And that's all I'm going to say. Just a Master of Magic and Arcane Tome combo in there as well. Those Stormdrake Guard are on a 3-up armor save. Mystic Shield works so well on those 3-up armor saves, right? Because they're 36 wounds, and just 1 Mystic Shield or all-out defense takes you to a 2-up. It's just so potent, so potent. Units of Big 4 as well, really useful if you get down to 1, and then you can just you can always just rally them, which I just think is great. Just good stuff. Like it. And they've got 5-up ward near Guard of Steel Soul. So they basically become Nurgle Flies with a better armor save, effectively. And then finally, we got a shout out for Felix Hingston, was our People's Champ of Wooden Spoon. He's 12 or 13 or something and kicked ass. Hey, shout out to Felix Hingston in the chat. Super proud of you. There are people, Felix, who travel across the world playing International Warhammer, and they're all rooting for you. If you're only 12 or 13, they're all rooting for you for eventually getting to the stage where you join them on the tournament circuits. When you grow up, get a little bit older, just know that there's a place in the community for you. So keep going. You can do it, kid. I believe in you. Our next event takes us to Orlando in Florida, where they had the Crucible X Age of Sigmar Grand Tournament. Zachary Shin won it with his Skaven Tide, and one of our few, if not only, 5-0s for Skaven. And then Jonathan Werector with his Sylvaneth Naru also went 5-0, so congratulations to both of them. The Skaven list was a Vermont Warbringer. Now, I've talked about this a little bit. Now, it's got the same loadout, identical to the loadouts that we've seen being put on our Vermont Deceivers in the Devious Adversary and the Warpstone Charm, and Flaming Weapons as a spell. But the Warbringer, I think people are sleeping on as a unit. I've seen it used a couple of times, mainly because of his ability to do Death Frenzy as a spell. And what that is Dreaded Death Frenzy, sorry. It's cast on 7 and a range of 13 inches. If successfully cast, you pick up to D3 friendly Skaven units holding range and visible to the caster until your next hero phase. If any models in that unit are slain, those models can fight before they're removed from play. Now, because of a FAQ that's been placed on the Eidolon Mathlon of the Sea belonging to Idoneth Deepkin, then D3 units can be the same unit D3 times. So you can get loads of additional fight on deaths, which is really good on the Warbringer, because the Warbringer has got 6 attacks on his Doomglaive, and he can get +2 to that because of the artifact or the relic or the command trait, one of the two, which is 8 attacks, 3s and 3s, Ren 2, damage 3, but that could be Ren 3 with the good old flaming weapons, and then 2 attacks, but would be 4 attacks, 2s and then 2s if he's unwounded, Ren 2, damage 3. So he can have a lot of potent output, especially when he fights and dies, then dies again, then dies again. You are looking at something that might delete units, which is very cool in my personal opinion. So I really like that, and I think that's super fun. Then he's got Warlock Engineer and Thanquol in the boat. 3 Warp Lightning Cannons to keep people honest at range. The Horror Gas spell, 2 units of Clan Rats, 5 Scryer Acolytes, and then 20 Storm Vermin. So Scryer Acolytes, very fragile on 75 points, but just do some great output at like very short distances. Yeah, the Slap Rat is what he is now. Yeah, so just super fun. Love that. Our Silverleaf list that went 5-0 was the Arch Revenant, the Warsong Revenant, a Battle Mage, 2x5 Tree Revenants, some Dryads, and then a Tree Lord. Oh, Tree Lord, more of a shooting unit, I've heard. And then Chronomantic Cogs and the Spite Swarm Hive. He's got 3 Aether Wings, 6 Gunner with Scythes, and then 3 Revenant Seekers in his list to heal them up. Let's do it. Okay, in the 4-1 bracket at the Crucible X, we got Nicholas Petrovski, who's running Iron Juice Bloodtooths, a bunch of Gore Grunters, and a Mega Boss Maw Crusher. Benjamin Foltz with his Nighthaunt running the Scarlet Doom. Was again a bunch of Bladegeist Revenants. You can see there 5 Hexwraiths, Krulgas Cruciator, and Guardian of Souls. Cody Saltz was also running Ironjaw's Bloodtooths, and no shock here, a bunch of Gore Grunters and a Mega Boss on Maw Crusher with some War Chanters in his list as well. Those lists fairly write themselves, but they're still excellent. And then Douglas Clem with Stormcast Eternals, really mixing it up a little bit. Lord Imperator and the Lord Relictor. Lord Relictor had the Arcane Tome, but his command trait was the High Priest, meaning he's got a rerollable teleport. Then he had a unit of 10 Judicators with Boltstorm crossbows, which is going to do a lot of shots. Then 2 units of Annihilators with Meteoric Grandhammers, and a unit of 10 Protectors, 450 points. Those are so powerful. They got a 2-up armor save, which I think is really, really good. In Battle Regiment and the Bounty Hunters, and a unit of 2 Fulminators. So he obviously can deep strike with his 2 units of Grandhammers with the Imperator, making it so they can deep strike within 9, do loads of mortal wounds. He can redeploy if he wants one of the units of the Boltstorm crossbows to get them in range to shoot out some screens, which is really nice. So the Annihilators can definitely get some big charges in. Then the Protectors are going to hold objectives incredibly well, especially as they're in Bounty Hunters, and their damage 1 weapons are going to go up to damage 2, and the Dracothian Guard Fulminators are just amazing. 2 Fulminators can delete way more than they deserve to delete. And that's everything from Crucible X. I hope everyone had a lovely time. Congratulations to all the people that did really, really well. Our second largest event from the weekend was the Michigan GT, 72 players playing in Lansing, Michigan. Now, the Michigan GT was attended by a bunch of legends, but again, seems to be the theme of the week. Bill Souza, the Ghoul King himself, the tall drink of water that is Bill Souza, has gone 5-0 with OCR Bone Reapers, one of the underperforming factions in Age of Sigmar at the minute, which is pretty wicked. Now, he's done it with OCR Bone Reapers, and again, in very typical Bill fashion, he's done this. This is probably like the 6th or 7th time that Bill has turned the meta on its head in the past 3 years of like me reading out lists, maybe even less time than that. Bill's phenomenal at the game on the tabletop, gent in person, but also really redefines how the meta works in loads of ways, and always does it with really unique and very his lists. So he was running Archax. You're running Petrifex Elite, which means you ignore the first pip of Rend in an enemy army, and you can add an additional Rend with a command ability to a unit. That's going to come important in a minute. He's got Arcan the Black, the Mortarch of Sacrament, and a Mortisan Soul Mason in his army as well. Now, Arcan's got pluses to cast and can also extend the spell range of his spells to cast as well, which is really good because he's going to want to definitely cast Mystic Shield, and his spells that he's taken are Ravanax Gnashing Jaws for mortal wounds, and Bone-Tie Shrieker, which stops people from using command abilities. He's also got Expert Conquerors and Battle Regiment. His Expert Conquering units units are 2 units of 5, 2 units of 9 Necropolis Stalkers. 2 units of 9. Necropolis Stalkers are 4 wounds apiece, and they've got a 4-up armor save, which does mean he's going to have 36 wounds in his army, in that unit. It's 540 points on a 4-up save, ignoring Rend 1. Now, I'm pretty certain he was loaded out with Spirit Blades on every single one of the Necropolis Stalkers, meaning he's got 5 attacks for 45 attacks. They hit on 3s, but obviously you can give him... Oh, you can't give him all-out attack. Is there a way to get +1 to hit? I don't know if there is. But you definitely get rerolls 1s to hit from the Soul Mason. Then he wounds on 3s, and it's Rend 1. However, with the Petrovski's command ability, it's Rend 2. He also can use the Quadrupec Aspects, which is an ability that the Stalkers have. And he can choose to use the Precision Aspect, which is to improve the Rend and damage characteristic of these units' melee weapons by 1. Oh, he does, thanks to Owen in the chat, get +1 to hit from the Bone Tithe Shrieker, which also gives you +1 to hit. So that means he's got 5 attacks, hitting on 2s thanks to the Bone Tithe Shrieker, as opposed to hitting on 3s. He's wounding on 3s, and then he's Rend 3, because he's normally Rend 1, additional Rend from using the Petrovski's ability, an additional Rend from the Precision Aspect War Scroll ability, and then he's damage 2, which is also because of the Precision Aspect ability. So 45 attacks, 2s, 3s, Rend 3, damage 2. And then he was like, that sounds like a really good unit. And so what he decided to do was he decided to take that unit twice. 2 units of Necropolis Stalkers, 525 points, not 540, all in a battle reg. And then he had 2 units of Cavalos Death Riders. The Necropolis Stalkers, also in Expert Conquerors. So that means they count as 27 models on objectives when they're not killed, right? Don't forget they're ignoring 1 pip of Rend. So if you wanted to, OBR aren't able to use all-out defense or redeploy or anything like that. But he does also have the ability with this army to also reroll saves using Blade Parry. So depending on activations and how these units are in a fight, he can have 1 unit rerolling saves, 1 unit using the +1 Rend, +1 damage, and he can kind of mix in between on those units as well. So just so good. So good in this army, and so powerful. And then he's going to be great on the primary, and then you're going to want to fight these guys, but also not fight these guys, because you're going to need to do a lot of output to take these down. So yeah, just incredible stuff. Great list. The other person, Michael Caldwell, was running Soulblight Gravelords. He also went 5-0, so congratulations to him. Michael was running a Legion of Blood Soulblight Gravelords list. We've seen this popping up a lot now. Manfred and Neferata. Manfred's just a really good singular duelist piece anyway, but it provides a load of buffs to his army in addition. Neferata's got a great spell where you can cast on a unit so they ignore negative modifiers that save. And then a Vampire Lord with Master of Magic and an Arcane Tome. He's got 2 units of 5 Black Knights, 10 Death Rock Skeletons, 20 Graveguard, and then 10 Blood Knights who start on a 3-up armor save. So when you make it so they ignore modifiers and cast Mystic Shield, they can be on a 2-up armor save. 2-up armor save, ignoring Rend 1 if they do all-out defense. On 30 wounds in that unit. Just so good. Horrorghast, Purple Sun, Chronomantic Cogs. Great list. Moving on to our 4-1s, and just because this has already been a 4-hour recording live on Twitch, I'm moving on, and I'm just going to read through some of these lists and the players that are doing well. Roger Barker from Team America with Beast of Chaos. Tom Guan, my co-host, love that guy. Cities of Sigmar. Barton Kelly with a 4-1. Again, Cities of Sigmar, Hallowheart. That's 2 Hallowhearts in there. Really making a comeback at the minute. Christian Teal with his Idoneth Deepkin Morfan. Brandon Harvey with his Magickin of Nurgle. Congrats. Yared Barrick with his Fire Slayers, and John Anderson with his Idoneth Deepkin. So just hitting that 4-1 bracket again. Then Michael Roush has got a great Slaves to Darkness army. Into Spoilers, super worth reading, and really cool list. Nick Carr with his Flesh Eater Courts went 4-1 as well. Flesh Eater Courts back, baby. John Castle with their Nighthorn using Emerald Host. And then Andrew Shower with his Ogre, More Tribes, Blood Gullet army. Congratulations to all of you for going 4-1. Super proud of you. Next, we're going up to lovely Scotland, where we're in Stirling at Northern Invasion. The Scottish scene has always been a really big, fun, collective scene, and I've been saying for years I want to go up there, so that's a plan Really excited. John B was the winner of their event in Northern Invasion, and he's Scotland's Mr. 300. He's like the powerhouse of the Scottish scene. I always read his name out. He's always doing well. He was the only person to go 5-0, I believe. TTO's being a bit of a mess. It is the only person. He was running Seraphon, and he was running Fangs of Sotek. He had Croak, an Astaroth Bannerbearer, a Skink Priest, and a Slan Starmaster. Then he had 30 Skinks, 2 lots 10 Skinks, Saurus Guard, and then the Incarnate of Gur with a Horrorghast, Ravenex Gnashing Jaws, and the Burning Head. We've seen a lot of Ravenex Gnashing Jaws in the list this week, and definitely has seen some real play as a damage-dealing spell. In the 4-1 bracket, we've got Mike Callahan with his Death Nighthaunt army. Mike was running a Scarlet Doom with a Spirit Torment, Guardian Souls, another Spirit Torment, a Cruciator, 2 lots of 20 Bladegeist Revenants, 3 Spirit Hosts, 5 Hex Wraiths, 10 Bladegeist Revenants, 10 Chainrats, and some Banshees. Purple Sun, an Endless Spell. Phil Mcguinness went 4-1 with his Bloodtooth Ironjaws, Mega Boss and Maw Crusher, 2 War Chanters, a Shaman, 2 lots of 6 Grunters and Arboys with a Rogue Idol. Love the Rogue Idol. Second time I've seen it this week. JP Gannis, lovely man. I hope he's doing really well. Slave Startness, Knights of the Empty Throne, Kotet. He's seen people around the world running this and definitely followed up. So Knights of the Empty Throne, Varangard unit becomes a hero. You can give it an artifact, which is always going to be the Inescapable Doom and Grasping Plate, which means you get to pile in from 6 inches up to 6 inches, and you can't retreat away from them, which means you get to run the unit, which move 12, so you got an 18-inch threat range, and you pile in 6 inches, so 24 inches, and then you can't run away from it. And it's got 3-up armor save on 30 wounds with Mark of Tzeentch giving it a spell ignore and also reroll once to save. And he's got 2 units of those, but the second unit does not have the Grasping Plate and Inescapable Doom, but it does have the Nullstone, which is auto unbind once per battle, which is super good. 2 Chaos Sorcerer Lords, 2 units of 4 Iron Golems, 4 units of 8 Iron Golems, 6 Furies, and then the Chaos War Shrine. And again, they've got Mark of Tzeentch, so they're just really, really tough. 3-up armor save, rerolling 1s on an objective. So loads of that damage is being done from there. From the Varangard in there are 1,000 points for the Varangard. They get to fight twice as well. JP is still making his new list spot system to run 20 systems on it too. Oh, lovely. Love that. That sounds great. Okay. Then you've got who's next? You've got Phil Mcguinness with his Iron Jaws. We talked about that. We talked about JP. Then Jamie and Ryath. Jamie's using Soulblight Gravelords, which he wrote really difficultly for me to read, but it had 20 Blood Knights and Neferata in his list. And Manfred. He's definitely got Manfred. He also has got something that's got the Arcane Tome in his list as well. And loads of Blood Knights. I think there's actually there's definitely 20 Blood Knights, but I can't read that, so there you go. And then Ryath was running Lumineth, Realm Lord, Zytrek, Wind Mage, a Venari Lord Regent, 2 lots of 10 Wardens, 30 Sentinels, another 30 Sentinels, and an Incarnate. Let's go! I absolutely love this list. Ryath. I hope I'm saying that right. Ryathi, 60 Sentinels and an Incarnate. Get in. Absolutely get in. I absolutely love that. Love that. And then Richard McGuire was running Seraphon, Thunder Lizard, Croak, Astro, Skink Priest, Engine of the Gods, 2x10 Skinks, 2 Basilicans with Solar Engines, and an Arcus Sotek, Purple Sun, and Cogs for the recast. Great. Okay, wonderful. Lovely hearing that everyone in Scotland's having a great time. Loads of love, and congratulations to all of you. Our last and biggest event is, thank you very much to Dadbod Napgod for donating 30 quid to the show so I can buy myself a pizza. I'm going to buy the biggest pizza you've ever seen. Oh, amazing. Okay, our final event is our biggest event, the London Grand Tournament down in London. I was at this event, and this had 76 players, so just pipping the Michigan GT. A bunch of people came over from France to play at this event, so it was a bit of an international affair. And I've got to say, one thing that I would like to note on, that Russ, who was running the event, had a really difficult job of TOing that event. There was a lot of I'm going to say egos at the event, and a lot of high level competitive international play. And it was really excellent to see Russ Russ doesn't necessarily TO'd a lot of events, and I think he did a particularly good job, in my opinion, in what was a really difficult crowd, mainly on his own. So I just want to say congratulations to him. Anyway, so in the 5-0 bracket, and I'm sure loads of other TOs around the world are doing also excellent work. That's just one I saw in person, so I just thought I'd make a mention of it. In the 5-0 bracket, Darren Watson. Now, Darren, you probably have heard of in Competitive Age of Sigmar anyway, but he does have a coaching service. He has a Patreon that you can subscribe to, and he coaches people through, I don't know how it works specifically, coaches people through events. So Darren was running a Daughters of Cain list, which we'll look at in a moment. And he went 5-0, and that was along with Hadrian Torin, and he was one of the French players, and he had a Magican of Nurgle list. So the Daughters of Cain list was in Xantha Kai. He had Marathi and he had Marathi in his list, obviously, and then a Hag Queen, Cauldron of Blood, with the Arcane Tome and the command trait Zealous Orator. So his 15 fighty snakes, the Blood Sisters, can rally on a 4+, 2 units of 10 Witch Elves, and then the Kron Spine Incarnate of Gur. So Cher and Sunny and Cher are back, and it's Marathi and the Kronspine Incarnate. So feel that's fairly self-explanatory as a list, because we've seen it already. But there you go, using all of those key elements. And then Hadrian's list was running a Magican of Nurgle Drowned Men list, Be'lakor, a Lord of Afflictions with Overpower Ascension, Split Horn Helm, 2 units of 4 Puskel Blight Lords, and 2 units of 2 Puskel Blight Lords. Now, I know he beat Phil in round 4, so it's Phil Marshall. This would have been Phil's 4th event in a row, and I think the 3 last events he went 5-0, and this was the only person to beat him, so congratulations. Coached me up to 2-1-4. How did he do it? It's a great question. How did he? But the pre-game move on the Puskel Blight Lords. But I know when he played Phil, he rallied 6 Puskel Blight Lords in a game. Can't argue with that. And then 3 Nurglings as well. Just a devastating list. I would argue this is one of the best lists in Age of Sigmar at the minute. I wouldn't go out and buy it now because I think it's going to change in the update. But yeah, just huge. Love this completely. So those are our 5-0s, and then we got a ton of 4-1s. So we'll talk through them, and I think I know them off the top of my head. Steve Follows was running a Kharazin Overlords list. He was running 2 of the Ironclads, but importantly, instead of taking Purple Sun, he was running the Rune of Petrification from Lumineth Realm Lords. Now, I always thought that people took the Purple Sun so that you got the -1 to armor save aura, so your guns did better. But Stephen was running it for the damage, I guess, and yeah, just a really prodigious player, doing really well, and unsurprising member of Team England, doing really great there. Yeah, because currently you got Team England, Team France, Team England. Then you got Jack Armstrong, again, another Team England, running a bunch of Stormcast Eternals, dragons in his list. Yorin, Camper with his Fangs of Sotek, was running loads of skinks in the Fangs of Sotek list. Phil Marshall went back to his Age of Sigmar 2 list. I think this puts Phil in the past 4 weeks as 19-1. Out of 20. Out of 20 games, he's won 19. With 4 different factions. I'm a bit gutted. I'm not going to lie, I'm a bit gutted we didn't get the 20th. Because that's the record. But I'm gonna claim 18-2, sorry. 18-2. 18-2 out of 4 events with 4 factions. So I'm gonna call it here now. Phil is so hot right now. He's got the new title. Hashtag so hot right now. Phil is back. Right? It's Phil. Then Michael Atali was running Soulblight Gravelords, and he was running a bunch of Blood Knights. Yes, a bunch of Blood Knights in his list, I'm pretty certain. Chris Riley was running Bone Splitters. I got the opportunity to play next to Chris. Lovely player. I got to watch him absolutely ruin Owen, which was really funny. But yeah, Chris did a great job with his Icebone Outriders. And it's just so much damage. It starts with 180 wounds, just doing loads of attacks. It's just really fun to see. Jonathan Gregory with Stormcast Eternals list went 4-1, and I honestly don't know what's in it. Sorry, Jonathan, but my love to you. I hope you did great. I'm sure you did really well. James Lake, I got the opportunity to play James, and he only lost in his final game with his Soulblight Gravelords Legion of the Night list. Just really great guy, really cool list. A bunch of Graveguard, tanking, his Necromancer, just great stuff. And then Simon Stevens. Simon Stevens with, ladies and gentlemen, the list of the week. By the way, the Stormcast Eternal list was using a Knight Incanter, Master of Magic, Mirror Shield, 2 units of Gryph-hounds. Oh, yes, the 4 Fulminators and the 4 Concussors. Yeah, this is super cool. This is super cool. And a unit of 3 Fast Riders and the Everblaze Comet. Like, really fun. I really like this. I really like this. This is a great list. And just looks really devastating on the tabletop. Honestly, it just looked great. But I think he played his final game, which he lost, he played into Nurgle with the, with the Glockin. And he just wasn't able to stop the fight backs. The one that I love, and there were loads of Nurgle at the event, but the list of the week, I'm saving it for the end of the show. Let me try and find it. Where is this list? Simon Stevens, list of the week. Okay. Get ready. Yeah, and it's hard to beat Bill Souza for list of the week. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, list of the week. Oakenbrow. So all of your monsters fight a top bracket. Okay? Spirit of Durthu. Right? I played against Simon Silver's list. It was tough. I also played against Simon's list, and it was tough. So did Owen. Yeah? Rain of Stars is 0% win rate against this list. Okay? Spirit of Durthu. Yeah, with Gnarled Warrior and the Greenwood Gladius, which means he's basically ethereal. An Arch Revenant and a Warsong Revenant with the Lord of the Deepwood regrowth for heal. The Tree Lord Ancient with the Versatile Gem and then Tree Song, so puts the forest down. And then a Tree Lord, and another Tree Lord, and the Spite Swarm Hive. 3 battle line Tree Lords in Bounty Hunters. They're more of a shooting unit than a fighting unit, right? But these things are amazing. They always count as fighting on top bracket. They're pretty fighty in a fight. Yeah, they've got 3 up armor save, right? They're very tough because you stick them all together. Because the thing you never want to do is you never want Durthu to hit you because he'll delete everything. Like, he'll just be like, bosh, let's murder everything. Yeah? The Warsong Revenant obviously does Mystic Shields and casts a bunch of good spells, right? Just absolute amazing and a great way to kind of end the show, to be honest. Okay, what have I took away from this week? Seen a lot of Ravanax Gnashing Jaws this week, so that's been a really interesting little flex. Skaven, it's fun seeing the Skaven list kind of settle in and seeing people playing a bunch of like different and interesting Skaven. Just again, Bill just flipping the table on what games are, but that's also true of people like Swaggy and some other people that have been playing some really interesting, unique lists. I've obviously been at an event this weekend as well. I got to say, I feel like Nurgle are very, very strong, but I didn't necessarily read them out tons this weekend, which is quite interesting. Dragon's still strong, of course. A bunch of different armies doing very, very well. We've seen a bunch of Deepkin lists do well. We got to say, though, if we're looking at something sad, that I read Master of Magic, Arcane Tome, and also I read the Incarnate out in most of those lists. And I'm really, really excited for Games Workshop to pull the finger out and really look at the internal balance of some of these armies. I'd like to see just the Incarnate go away, and I would really like to see there be a mix-up on that combo of Master of Magic and Arcane Tome. Those are the only sad bits. Apart from that, this is our second largest event, as I said in the pre-show. And, just amazing stuff. Like, loads of people playing loads of Warhammer all around the world, and the variety of those lists is pretty stupendous. So I think that's just amazing stuff, and I'm really happy to see it. This has been a 4-hour recording, although obviously it's chopped down for YouTube. So if you are watching back on YouTube or listening to the podcast, it would be great if you could potentially sign up to my Patreon or subscribe to the show or do any of those things. That's it. As always, I need to thank 2 different people, Ziggy and Rob. Rob for putting all the information for me at the start of the show, and Ziggy for producing the stats, which you can go find on honest-wargamer.com. All of the link to all of the information will be in the show notes below. Thanks very much. See you soon.